All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Welcome back to the channel. This is your host, Young Brando, live from Los Angeles. You guys know the Sotheby's New York auctions have been going on for a couple of days already, and they are going to conclude with what seems to be their marquee event, and that is the GOAT collection, watches and treasures from Tom Brady's collection. Since I'm still a staunch believer that football is a game played by feet, and I'll continue to prefer an athletic competition. If I'm going to watch men in tights, I will go for rowing. I'll have to bring in an expert, an actual fan whose perspective I really value, both, of course, as a Patriots fan and a watch collector. So welcome, Bezos. Bezos.
What's going on?
How are you doing, man?
Well, thanks. How are you?
Good, good. Are you excited about this auction that's going to take place tomorrow?
I think it's going to be a lot of fun. From the timepiece perspective, it isn't even a lot of the memorabilia looks really cool.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's a very nice variety of watches certainly in it, and I would like you to enlighten me as well to everything else that is included too, because at the end of the day, it's called Watches and Treasures from Tom Brady, and there are caps, jerseys, and an assortment of other things as well, in addition to watches, championship rings, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, looks like a lot of good stuff. Just really kind of starting from his early days in college at Michigan. I'm seeing some jerseys there. I'm seeing some footballs that were used in game during certain milestones, helmets, wristbands that were worn, throughout kind of those milestones for someone
Mm.
that had such a long, an over 20-year career, in the NFL, just breaking records, and really almost like with Tom Brady, there were two kind of phases to the career. I felt like there was an early phase when he was young, when he had his hands on his head, like I just won a Super Bowl. To I feel like he kind of just changed gears like later in his career, where just coming out, just literally running on the field, punching and just being yelling like "Let's effing go!" And it really, he kind of like once he kind of saw the light at the end of the tunnel, he took it to another level and he continued to win. So that's why
And
he's
again,
he's a goat.
enlighten me a little bit because I don't know much about this game, um, about NFL specifically. But I'm given to understand that his success and his fate is very tightly connected to the fate of the franchise. That is to say, the Patriots. Um,
Absolutely.
how many Super Bowls did he win? How many of them with the Patriots? And how many Super Bowls did the Patriots win?
Sure. So the Super Bowls that he won with the Patriots were six. And towards his later years, he actually won one in Tampa Bay. His actually his first year away from the Patriots, with mostly new faces, though a couple actually. Rob Gronkowski, his starting tight end with the Patriots, actually came out of a bit of a year hiatus and joined them, and actually, yeah,
Mm.
they actually took it. Actually took the game at home in Tampa, the first team to ever actually win and even play, I believe, in a home game for the Super Bowl for that Tampa win. So that number seven was won. And yeah, the Patriots played in two Super Bowls prior to Tom Brady, one in '85 and one in '96. And both those they lost pretty handedly. The Bears in the '85-'86 season, and then that '95-'96 season was against the Packers.
Mm.
With Brett Favre. But yeah, so a guy named Drew Brees was kind of the number one pick overall that we all kind of grew to like. He was a Pro Bowler. He got the job for the most part done offensively, though kind of a lot of interceptions. He wasn't perfect. Kind of, that guy that was number one pick overall, and then lo and behold, he gets hurt. Second season for Brady
Mm.
and Tom Brady gets his name called. The guy that was picked in the sixth round, the guy that had to fight just to get playing time to a certain degree at Michigan, though, always found a way to beat out like a good
Yeah.
recruit, and actually, start, pretty much throughout Michigan and get drafted. And they were carrying four quarterbacks at one point because that's a high number, and they really like Brady, and they saw something in him right away.
Yeah, I,
So
I
he
like
was,
I like that sweep of the career that you really explained, right? That in it's hard to believe now, right, at the end of such an illustrious career, but Tom Brady was once an underdog. He wasn't really expected to succeed, certainly not to this level, and so 6 Super Bowls,
yeah.
all of the Patriots, all the 6 Super Bowls that the Patriots won were him. And as far as I know, have they even made it to the Super Bowl after Tom Brady in the post Brady era?
No, yeah, they
Not
haven't
yet.
really. Yeah,
Not yet.
they've not yet, not yet. There'll come a day. This Drake May guy who's at quarterback. Hey, maybe we might have something there, but hey, it's definitely a ways to go. Um, I think it was one of those things where even when he was winning, it was always they asked him, well, what was your favorite after you had a few under his belt? He's like, the next one. He always kind of kept that chip of being that sixth rounder, that 199th pick. Always had that mentality of having something to prove. And even to the later years where most people like just kind of mellow out, they're still there, they're still competitive, they're still cheering on their team. Like he just like he flipped a switch. And I won't get too much into it now because I know we have a lot of auction, pieces to cover, but
Sure.
I feel that, Boston sports, prior to him coming, I mean, granted, it's a story town for sports, always been a big sports town. However, there was a drought from 86 to 2001 where, we had the Red Sox that lost the World Series. We don't want to talk about Bill Buckner. We had the ball right through his legs. Yeah, kind of tough one. But hey, the Red Sox made up for it after. But in 2001, they lost in '96. They got beat by a good Packers team. But back in 2001, going out there, being the underdogs against a really good Rams team, winning. And after that, it's kind of like, I don't know what it was, but that win was contagious. Like all of a sudden, the
Yeah.
Red Sox start getting hot. And then all of a
The
sudden, yeah,
winning tradition is very interesting. My only, because as far as I know, those 6 Super Bowls, did they play any other Super Bowls with Tom Brady that they lost the
they
past?
did, yes. So they
Yeah. How
actually,
many?
for the number that they won, they actually lost three. So they
Okay,
lost,
so won
yeah,
6,
three.
lost 3. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's pretty great record, but
Just getting, yeah,
in
absolutely.
in football, my kind of football, the analogy that I have is Real Madrid, for example, right? They are, of course, they're always competing at the high level, but they have made it to the Champions League final, what was once called the European Cup, the highest club competition in European football. They have won 15 times and only lost 3 times, right? So there are those kinds of teams that carry that kind of tradition, even in an intergenerational fashion. But it remains to be seen, I guess, if that can be carried over to the next generation beyond Tom Brady. But let's look at some watches and even some other items from the GOAT collection. And I guess TB12 is a reference to his jersey number, just
Yep.
to clarify. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, probably it was a few years in, he branded himself with Tom Brady TB and 12 and created a unique logo to go along with it. And TB12, and again I can get into this later. It turned into more than just a logo and even like branding for merchandise, a lot of his like just healthy eating and his pliability and mobility um, practices were utilized, and actually they made a like different like kind of like programs, and they even had a studio in that shopping area around the stadium to kind of, you know, you want to be like Tom Brady and be that forever young, like
Yeah.
performing high in your later years. Like the formula is actually a guy, I believe Alex Guerrero. I want to say Alex Guerrero was his name, who was kind of like a fitness, like kind of his mentor, that somebody that he worked with other NFL guys, but Tom Brady actually like legit like moved this guy into New England. It's like, you're gonna be my guy.
Right.
Like we're gonna work together, and we're gonna, you know, take it kind of day by day, and, you know, keep
So
me going.
is there an item you want to start with? Because you know where I'm gonna go eventually,
Oh
if
yeah.
not sooner than later.
Wherever, you know, I'll follow your lead, and yeah. So it's
All right. Well,
wherever you want to begin.
then you know where I'm gonna go. I think this slot may have been the reason Giselle actually left him.
Oh
If
yeah.
if it isn't, I feel, you know, so much better for her, having now conceived a child with another man. This is called the roast because apparently he wore it to the roast of Tom Brady. And I think it's a testament to why a lot of celebrities should not be left to their own devices when they make watch purchases, and should not be given free rein when they are ordering watches. What happened here? What is going on? Why is there a Roman numeral 7 at
I
11?
At 11, you know, that's funny. That's funny. I mean, if he was a wide receiver, you could say it was 7-11 and he's always open. I don't know if that analogy plays to QB though, but you know, it's funny because it's like, what was it? Virgil has my Risco and nuts, right? For Drake's
That's
watch,
right.
the green. I mean, this was actually done in house, which is crazy, right? Like it seems like such a bespoke thing, but was it? Is it, what's his name? Was it Shipman, the creative person within AP that he worked with on this? It's
Look,
literally somebody,
I
yeah.
mean, I wanna say something about that too, because people use that as if it were an excuse. I mean, all the more shame on the brand Audemars Piguet if this actually left the manufacturer like that. I'm sorry. I mean, that can't be an excuse, right? You know, that they let their own standards slip because a celebrity asked them to make a certain kind of watch. I'm not sure if I can see that as a reasoning.
Yeah,
You know,
I get it.
I'm maybe even more incensed because there's a lot I like about this particular watch, namely the Royal Oak Flying Tourbillon. Here, the reference 26730 BC, so it is all in white gold, and it has actually diamond set on the bezel, which, you know, if you ask me, I don't mind that either. But I think once we get on the dial, things go a little overboard for me. And again, look, I'm not the one usually to tell people what they should do with their watches, so I always ease off, and most of this is for purposes of entertainment. But there's so much that you know, there's wrong with it. When you ask me, I will bring up a picture in a little bit while you talk to find some justification for it, because AP has traditionally done watches using people's names to decorate the hour markers of the dial. So there's some inspiration, I suppose, that is there. But yeah, even then, there's not much that makes sense. I wish I wish he used maybe, I don't know, maybe number 12 as a Roman numeral, which he uses as part of his branding.
Yeah, that's kind of
I
what I
I don't
thought.
know. I don't know who the hell designed this, but there's like, even within the concept, I feel there's a lot of slippage in there. But go ahead, please.
When I see this, I think about something very kind of particular from my youth. A lot of us, there's a lot of Italian kids where I grew up, right? And we'd have these pizza parties, and one of the places like Papa Gino's Pizza Party, right? And what they would do is like if you were the birthday, the one that was being celebrated that day, they would allow you to make your own pizza, right? You can put anything you want on the pizza. Yeah, you want you want pickles, kid? Yeah, go for it, right? Whatever. It's your birthday. You celebrate. It almost kind of has that vibe, right? Like it's just kind of like, well, what do you want to do, Tom? It's like, well, I'm playing for Tampa now. And I love that peach color. Like kind of I'm trying to think of the other kind of verbiage that's kind of thrown around, almost like that sherbet, that kind of like that like little bit of an orangey, light orangey kind of color. So I think that was an inspiration, and throwing his name on there was it just doesn't flow, right? You're saying like having a 7 where the placement of an 11 would be is kind of, and if they even just had it like abstract, just throw it where a stepping to go. If they didn't, if it wasn't a turbion, like maybe that would work. But yeah, like it is kind of strange, and in a way, like strange, like these one of ones. I mean, only one person has to be happy with it, and the
You
person
have
that's happy with it is selling it, right? Like,
Basil, you have started the pizza debate in the chat. Now
oh no.
we will have a problem. People are talking about whether you can put cucumber or pickles on the pizza. How
Yeah.
about pineapple? We are done. But what I was going to show was this particular example that even gave the case shape its name in a way, right? Because this was a watch commissioned by John Schaefer at AP. I believe it was quite early in the century, like in like 1900s. I want to say 30s, and it is a minute repeater, and it is commissioned by one John W. Schaefer, who was, I believe, an American industrialist at the time. So, it's not exactly something completely new and so out of the box for good and bad for the brand to do. And like you said, it's not really a customized piece in the way that we usually understand and encounter it in the world of horology. This is how it left the manufacturer. This is actually done by AP, as difficult as it might be to believe it. And it's certainly not the first example where someone's, I was going to say initials, but of course not, someone's entire name decorates the dial in a way that it replaces, the letters replace the hour markers. Now, again, I think, there is precedent for it. I might not like it. And the reason I don't like it is, I think, mostly because there's a lot that I already like about the watch. I wish it was left alone, because everyone knows that I like a Salomon dial. I like a Salmon dial. Everyone knows that I love the Royal Oaks, and the Flying Tourbillon is one of the more beautiful expressions of it, especially because they have that specific tapisserie pattern that they call tapisserie évolutive, that kind of explodes out of the tourbillon cage. I like that.
Yeah.
And obviously, it's a once in a lifetime thing. So that kind of, I think, sets it apart from a kid's birthday at Chuck E. Cheese, right?
Right.
And it
And
also has, by the way, a customized rotor, open worked, and I suppose the scribble is his signature.
yeah, actually, yeah, it was kind of hard for me to make out, but yeah, it's that his signature does look like that actually.
All right, so we are looking at lot 41 from the GOAT collection, reference 26730. It is an Audemars Piguet Royal Oak Flying Tourbillon, called the roast because he wore it during the roast of Tom Brady, the Netflix special. So you can still see it there if you so wish. A baguette diamond set bezel, and over the salmon dial with the special tapisserie évolutive pattern, you have Tom Brady's name in calibré cuts and baguette diamonds, and the number 7 in Roman numerals at 11 o'clock symbolizes his 7 Super Bowl victories. There's also a custom rotor involved, as we were talking about, that is still on your screen here, which is inscribed with his personal signature. The pre-auction estimate given by the auction house is 400,000 to 800,000 US dollars. Let's go a little further back in his career, perhaps, because there are a lot of IWCs
Yeah,
in here,
yeah, he
and
actually,
I believe at some point he was endorsed by IWC, right?
that is actually correct. Yeah, so it was, I believe, 2000 because he actually had a Tag Heuer endorsement that went from like 15, I believe, to 19, and then from 19 to when he retired, he had an IWC, endorsement. And when he retired, the deal kind of went to pasture. But during that
Oh,
time,
who
yeah,
still has an IWC endorsement?
who is that?
Giselle. Anyway, go on.
Yeah, right. Burn.
But that's very interesting. Is there any of the IWCs that you want to highlight particularly, or that you want to
Um,
take a closer look at?
it's funny because just to really kind of quickly touch on it, I did want to talk about IWC. It was actually like kind of like his lore on kind of his interest in watch collecting and just watches in general. Apparently, when he was in college, he uses actually the phrase of his computer screensaver, which I believe is probably his wallpaper, not screensaver, but I guess it's possible as a screensaver.
Hmm.
But on his computer on the display was an IWC. The model was called the automatic alarm, and it was
Yeah.
abbreviated GST. So I guess they used GST with some of their models that were made in gold, stainless, and titanium. And
Speaking on that, by the way, I think this particular lot and this particular watch is a great example. It's lot 31, which is a Portuguese perpetual calendar, and it is from year 2007. So it's a watch that predates his endorsement deal. It's a
yeah,
watch that we can presume he bought himself, or it was gifted to him on his 30th birthday, I believe, right? 2007 is, he should be 30 around that time. Was he born in 77? I think
that
so.
sounds about right, actually. Yeah, yeah, that sounds about right because he's 47 now. So
Yeah.
those numbers sound right. And I know there was a Portugueser that was given to him on his 30th birthday, or given or purchased by him. It was kind of a commemorative, and actually I knew a little bit about the lore. Actually, seeing the watch is awesome because it puts some metal behind the story.
Yeah, and Portuguese is the classic oversized dress watch by IWC, and if there is a single complication you or I, at least I should say, associate with IWC, it is really the perpetual calendar, because when they introduced the Da Vinci perpetual calendar chronograph in 1986, thanks to Kurt Klaus's ingenious module, they had become only the second watch company to produce a perpetual calendar chronograph in series. So whenever I see an IWC perpetual calendar, I think of these sorts of solutions that watchmakers and some of the watchmakers of the highest caliber and intelligence, of course, find on a daily basis to what are seemingly insurmountable problems. And Kurt Klaus, by the way, is still well and alive. He's 90 years old now. So it's really a beautiful watch, classic IWC with a great complication that also is associated with the brand. It is in white gold with a case that scales right above 42 millimeters in diameter. Comes as a full set of all those memories that you described, all that lore. A watch that was a gift for him, probably, or perhaps both for him for his 30th birthday to mark that significant milestone. And as lot 31, it has an estimated value of 15,000 to 30,000 US dollars. I think we can come back to some of the IWCs, I guess, in a little bit.
Yeah.
But I wanna actually take a look at something much less predictable, which is lot 34.
Yeah, the pocket watch.
And this will connect us to the next watch that we're probably going to talk about. But this is what they call the TBXII or TB12 Grand Complication, a Patek pocket watch that was retailed once by the illustrious New York house Tiffany and Company. This, as it happens, is John Reardon's personal choice, personal favorite from the selection, from the entire auction. And it is a piece that's worthy of that name, Grand Complication or Grand Complication, because it is an open-faced pocket watch that is a perpetual calendar, a split-second chronograph, and a minute repeater. As you can see, it's also signed on the dial, of course, by Patek Philippe Genève, but also Tiffany and Company, as well as the movement number. I always love, as you guys know, when the moon phase indicator is set at 12 o'clock. I feel it gives kind of pride of place to what is essentially a romantic complication. The hands are done in the Breguet style, heat blued, which gives them a beautiful level of legibility against an eggshell colored dial, which has Roman numerals as its hour markers. It's in 18 karat yellow gold, 53.5 millimeters in diameter. And as you can see, it is in fact a split-second chronograph with the double centrally deployed chronograph seconds hands that you see. Of course, there's a beautiful hinged case back, which allows you to peek into the movement.
Yeah, the pocket watch are pocket watches, right? Like, as far as really the complexity of it, I know stainless is always kind of a cool thing with Patek, but full gold, to have it, that beautiful chime, like really nothing left out with this, and if it was a watch a year, it's millions and millions and millions. Like, it's crazy,
Now, honestly,
like Tiffany stamped.
the thing is, Basil, when a lot of the charm in this day and age of a pocket watch is really the fact that it's a substantial thing, right? So it's when someone pulls out this kind of pocket watch, the fact that it is almost 54 millimeters in diameter and in 18 karat yellow gold matters. The heft of it, the weight of it, of course, the complexity of it. This is a grand complication after all. Everything, of course, adds to it. Obviously, the movement is beautifully finished, right? We might think that hand finishing of movements is something that dawned on people with the age of independent makers and macro photography. Obviously, this couldn't be further from truth, right? It used to be, at least in a bygone era, the distinctive mark of Genevan craftsmanship. Even in situations, even in cases, no pun intended, where the case back would only be opened by the same watchmaker, right? Because a lot of the Swiss watchmakers come from a tradition where God always watches over you, right? Even if someone else doesn't see your work necessarily. So the precision, the accuracy, and the kind of work that you bring into your profession, into the finishing, assembly, and regulation of the movement is almost a devotional ideal, and it's as much of a principle, a maxim, an ideal that people followed in 1917 when this watch was made, as it is now in the 21st century with certain independent makers. I mean, look at those beautifully finished hammers, the swan neck regulator, the capped column wheel. I mean, it's a thing of beauty, and it's, again, one of the remarkable things is you can go back an entire century in time, and the general layout of the movements for certain complications doesn't change. The standards of good hand finishing, they're already there and established. And that's why we love mechanical watches, right? Quartz watches might be more precise. There might be, your microwave might be more accurate by now, but there are certain aspects of this artisanal watchmaking that is really a matter of pride, and that this is a great example of that tradition, of the Swiss watchmaking tradition.
Absolutely, very well said. And it kind of goes to kind of go into like a TB12 like mentality of building something like this, and playing, a sport at such a high level, and it'd be something that you lay your hat on is, every day I give 100%. I'm not going to take shortcuts. I'm not going to look for outs. I'm not going to, try to, you know, try to cheat, the system, maybe deflate a ball or two. That's okay. But I'm just kidding. But but yeah, I'm gonna take care of my body. I'm gonna take care of my teammates. I'm gonna contribute, and that's kind of where we have pieces, and we're people that stand out and kind of beat the odds and break records.
And look, I mean, it's look at, for example, the detail on these chronograph works. Right, on the main plate, you can also see the movement number, and even the fact that it's made for Tiffany. But look at the hand finished angles on this thing. Right, and like you said, it's the result of a kind of dedication and devotion to one's work that does not take any shortcuts. And I like how you threw in that caveat here. Of course, at the entry level especially, unfortunately, Patek, along with many other distinguished Swiss makers, started taking shortcuts a while ago already. But at least there's always going to be these kinds of pieces that crazy people like us will preserve. Great watchmakers will continue to take care of, and they will always be there to shame industrial watchmaking, perhaps to do better,
Yeah.
always.
And I think it's just we're able to take resources and use technology to perfect the craft. However, the human element still needs to be there. That's what, the, like, you don't just finish, like, let the machine finish. It's going to, at the end, it's going to be hand polished. Things are going to take place. It's going to go through steps. It's not just a cookie cutter complication, case, stuff like that. In this day and age, yes, there's a lot of technology. However, the human element, isn't totally gone. At least in like the true like Swiss watchmaking, and in a lot of industries, like you're saying, yeah, the whole quartz movement, yeah, it's like just a little computer brain that can make things to a microsecond. However, it sometimes getting the most out of something that is imperfect is almost is just a sweeter item.
Yeah, I mean, it's man-made, and I think
Right.
that
True.
still matters. Lot 34. This is a TB 12 Grand Complication, a Patek Philippe pocket watch, retailed by Tiffany and Company, made in 1917. It is an Grand Complication worthy of the name because it is actually this beautiful 54 millimeter, 18 karat yellow gold, open faced, minute repeating, perpetual calendar, split second chronograph with an indicator for the moon phases. The piece has an estimated value that the auction house estimates in the range between 200,000 to 400,000 US dollars. Now, AB asks a good question, and I'm not gonna really, put the entire rationale of these kinds of auctions in conversation or in discussion, in debate here. But just to quickly answer this question, at 10 to 20K, I'm surprised someone of his wealth is auctioning the IWCs. Why not give them to family, friends? Well, first of all, you never know what kind of financial situation people find themselves in. This is not to imply at all that Tom Brady is facing any difficulties. Don't take me wrong. I think he can probably settle whatever situation he finds himself in by just a commentary deal or some sort of TV deal or broadcast deal that he strikes. That's not the problem. But I talk about this because I do a lot of auction previews. The estimates are always held at the most conservative minimum AB. So, and there are a lot of reasons for that. I'm not going to belabor it too much, but in an auction like this, the primary reason is to elicit as many bids as possible early on to generate that excitement, generate that momentum, to get the best price for the seller. Because once again, remember, and this is important for us collectors to keep in mind, especially if you find yourself more often on the buying side of things, auction houses only have a fiduciary duty towards the person who consigns the items, not to you. So their primary objective is to sell the item for as much money as possible. At the expense of what? No one knows, right? But the conservative, the minimalistic pre-auction estimates are basically the most fundamental trick they have in their bag. Trust that none of those IWCs will actually sell for anywhere near $10,000-$15,000.
I actually heard in industry, like insiders say, he thought the AP Tourbillon could even fetch like 2 million, which seems like a crazy high number, but it really only takes two people to make things get a little wild.
I would not be surprised at all. But I will actually, sorry, before I go to this Patek, I want to go to an item that again seems quite inconspicuous, but it gives us an idea about how this collection came about. Again, I take to heart your point, Basil, that even as a young man, as a college student, he had an interest in watches, and maybe he could have become a collector nonetheless. But as far as I know, Tom Brady was actually part of that investor group, along with LVMH Ventures, that invested in Hodinkee. Of course, Hodinkee has now been bought by Watches of Switzerland, so it's a different era and a different conversation altogether. But the fact that he has this Tudor Black Bay 58 for Friends of Hodinkee remains testament to the fact that he was connected with some of the tastemakers in the horological space, and for better or worse, I should say, and they have clearly influenced his selections in one way or another.
Sure. Now, I know he's very tight with Mark Wahlberg, who we all know is a huge collector, and I think it's one of those things where I think you kind of have that bug early on, just knowing kind of a little bit of his past of like after winning his first Super Bowl of acquiring a few timepieces pretty shortly after, and kind of going through over the years, having different deals from Movado, and up, even when the little fan watches with his number on it, like there's, it's just something that is kind of been part of him. But I think when you get that friend that gets in your ear, like, oh, Tommy, what are you getting next? What are you getting next? Like, I'm sure like had a huge influence, and kind of kept him going, kept him, engaged in the hobby.
You're absolutely right. We all have those kinds of quote unquote influencers, hype man, and other kinds of friends who sometimes egg us on for the next purchase. And I guess you could do worse than Mark Wahlberg and the circles around Hodinkee. This watch, of course, has their logo at 6 o'clock. They were all personalized on the case back, and Tom Brady's is engraved with TB12. One of only 100. Friends of Hodinkee, Tudor reference 79030, Heritage Black Bay 58, Friends of Hodinkee edition, with an estimated value of 5,000 to 10,000 US dollars at lot 5 of the GOAT collection.
Actually, real quick watch check. I'm wearing Tudor tonight.
Oh, yeah?
Got the 39 Pelagos.
Very
and
nice.
actually, another one I'm wearing.
Not bad. I guess that's relevant, huh?
Gotta wear it. Gotta represent.
A Doc and his watch says, "Hi, it was a pleasure to meet you at Watch Time New York. It was my pleasure, man. Lovely to see you here. I'm so glad that you are actually watching and you let me know in the chat. And I know that you're watching in one way or another because you do drop likes on Instagram for my new posts, and that's something that I don't take for granted and something that I deeply appreciate because, you know, I go through ebbs and flows, Basil. Sometimes my Instagram is doing better. Sometimes my YouTube channel is doing better. They're both relatively small, but I really appreciate whenever people show me love. And you guys should, by the way, check out Basil's YouTube channel and his Instagram account. I think both are at Basil's Bezels.
That's correct. Yes. Yeah, and they're both works in progress, but I have fun with them, and I get inspired, and I'll throw stuff up here and there.
Okay, wait a second. Why am I failing like this? Basil's Bezels. I can't. Can you drop
underscore in there?
Basil's underscore Bezels.
Yep, and no apostrophe.
All right. So, guys, please, now that you're on YouTube, go directly through this link and show some love to Basil's Bezels, subscribe, and maybe that will encourage him to produce more content, create more content, both on YouTube and Instagram. If you're watching this show, if you're enjoying it, if you have learned something from it, please hit the like button. That helps quite a bit. Since we were talking about Pateks, let's add another one into the mix, because this is, once again, a watch that is somewhat akin to the pocket watch, to the Grand Complication that we were looking at earlier, because specifically, this is a very special perpetual calendar chronograph that, again, any watch collector would, I think, aspire to own if they are going after vintage Pateks. And it would be of interest to, again, a lot of high-rolling watch collectors, even if it were not connected to that name, to TB12, because it's a reference 3970 belonging to the first series, made in 1986, and understood to be only the second example ever produced, with the number 875001. Quite remarkable. Already the 3970 is one of those landmark references for the Patek Perpetual Calendar. Classic 36 millimeter sizing, built on the base of that legendary Lemania 2310 or CH27 movement, probably the definitive chronograph movement of the 20th century, having given us anything from the Moonwatch to Patek Perpetual Calendar chronographs and so many other things in between, from Roger Dubuis and Daniel Roth hand-wound chronographs to even AP tourbillon chronographs. But let me get back to this beautiful thing here. It is in yellow gold with a classic first series dial. Of course, a moon phase indicator at 6 that is surrounded by pointer dates, continuous running seconds in circles. At 9 o'clock, the 24-hour hand, which serves as your day-night indicator. And at 3 o'clock, you have, at 3 o'clock, you have your 30-minute totalizer, which wraps itself around the leap year indicator as well. Above the signature of the brand at 12 o'clock, you have 2 wickets for the day of the week and the month. Simple stick markers for the hours and leaf-shaped hands for the hour and minutes. Centrally deployed and blued hand for the chronograph seconds completes the picture. Early 3970s have these closed case backs. 3971 was the reference with an exhibition case back, but here is that case back lifted. You can see the hallmark of Geneva, of course, on the balance bridge. It's really a beautiful, beautiful piece. And again, you know, who knows if, you know, in an alternative universe, everything else being pretty much the same, if Tom Brady would be collecting these kinds of rare Pateks. But hey, he did, and now he's letting them go. And those are 2 watches between what is lot 39 here for the Perpetual Calendar chronograph, reference 3970, and lot 34, which was the Grand Complication pocket watch from Patek Philippe, retailed by Tiffany and Company all the way back from 1917. Lot 39 has an estimated value in the range between 150,000 to 300,000 US dollars.
Yeah, even though it's probably, as far as a case size, you have the lug to lug that, you know, the longer lugs probably where it's really nice on the wrist.
Yeah, you know, there's a reason, I think, why a lot of modern collectors like the 5970 a little better, because that has a bigger, beefier case. But, you know, horses for courses, so to speak, right? You know, I really like the 3970, and that has, of course, a lot to do with the fact that I have a skinnier wrist, no doubt. But I also like the idea of a dress watch with a high complication being a little more compact. And for me, the beauty of Patek high complications in so many ways is in the miniaturization. So when it can be squeezed into a smaller package, to me, that's a little more impressive.
Sure. Yeah, no, like thin and yeah, kind of smaller. You know, that's kind of dress for you. But even so, like, yeah, like I feel like it's probably a good size. And like with the longer like lugs, you still kind of have a little bit of that wrist presence. It doesn't feel like, you know, where your wristband is, it's taken up a little bit, I feel.
No, honestly, this again, I don't know if you had a chance to try one of these on the wrist. The case is actually quite ornate in a very subtle way, like the fluted lugs contribute to that.
Mhm.
Of course, the complication brings a certain thickness into the picture, as you can see
Sure.
here, with the downward curve of the lugs as well.
Hmm.
So a watch like this does have a lot of wrist presence without necessarily being a larger case size either.
Yeah.
That's just something to keep in mind. Again, we don't argue matters of taste, as the old saying goes, but still, there's a Nautilus. Of course, everyone has to have a hype watch. This two-tone original Nautilus Jumbo was TB12s. It's literally a 3700 line 11 Jumbo Nautilus with the classic black-blue gradient ridged dial. And the execution of the two-tone, I always find, is very attractive in these kinds of integrated bracelet designs. But again, my judgment is already suspect because I have been a two-tone guy all along from 1675-3 onwards, my root beer GMT master. This is a piece from 1982 that combines, of course, a stainless steel case and bracelet with the polished center links in gold, as well as the hinge of the porthole style case rendered in gold as well, not to mention the fixtures on the dial as well as the hands. Are you a fan of the Nautilus or two-tone watches,
Um,
Base?
well, to be fair, both though, I feel like the Nautilus, I like the way they execute two tone. I kind of remember like kind of the earlier, you know, getting into the hobby and seeing the Nautilus that was kind of like more of the modern blue with the two tone, and it kind of really looking sharp with that blue dial, the two tone, just the way that they kind of integrate it's
Yeah.
pretty sharp. I am a fan, and in general, I just feel I think I'm just partial to the value you get at two tone. You know, with a lot of times you're paying less for two tone than steel, and I
On the
think
secondary
it's
market, yeah,
big
you're
time.
you're right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Because
yeah.
there was a time where the precious metal versions, because people couldn't quite wrap their head around the idea that you can have even a luxury sports watch in precious metal, it was still not the best option for many. So there was a time even the precious metal ones were undervalued, relatively speaking. um, of course, it has a lot to do with the fact, as you know, but some others in the audience might not, that these pieces, both the Royal Oak and the Nautilus, not to mention the IWC Ingenieur, the 70s pieces designed by Gerard Janta, were first executed in stainless steel. That they were making a statement precisely by creating a luxurious, a precious, chic watch in stainless steel that's also sporty. But over time, like you said, Basil, the two-tone versions have remained relatively undervalued, and sometimes, they are even cheaper than the stainless steel alternative. So if you actually like the style, it becomes simply a great option. And like you said, this is like the baby or the original version of the 5980, which JJ has famously called the rich man's bluesy.
Yep, that's
Right?
right.
This is the original rich man's bluesy. And of course, it's a very different genre of watch compared to 5980 because, of course, the Nautilus flyback chronograph is a humongous thing compared to this sleek, elegant, mostly dressy version of the jumbo, even if it is offered here in a bimetal execution. And lot 40 has an estimated value set in the range between 50,000 to 100,000 US dollars. I do want to look at some of the Daytonas here. And again, like, you have a watch that should be of interest to a lot of serious high rolling watch collectors, even if it would not have been associated with Tom Brady's name. And that is a kind of Rolex Daytona that is called the John Player Special, because its particular combination of black and gold is reminiscent of that classic John Player Special livery of Team Lotus cars, which obviously fits in, aligns with this romantic image of the Daytona as a thing associated with racing, motorsports. This is a reference 6241, which means that it combines an acrylic plastic tachymeter bezel insert with pump pushers. Incidentally, this is a 14 karat yellow gold case, presumably directed to the American market, mounted on a matching Jubilee bracelet. And of course, the exotic dial, the Paul Newman exotic dial, as it's sometimes called, completes the picture. And the distinctive elements of that are the slightly sunken minutes/seconds track, the abbreviated hour markers, the Art Deco font that is used in the chronograph registers, and the square and hash marks that accompany them.
Yeah, Tom Brady actually wore this on television at it wasn't like his full retirement ceremony, but it was like an event that he was, after he retired, he was welcomed back to the to visit and kind of say hello in a way. And he actually kind of like ran out. They gave him a jersey as he would wear, on the playing field, and kind of came out and pumped up the fans and had a few words. But this was, I believe it was this very watch that was what he was sporting that day.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. And there's since we were just talking about Patek, there's a fight about that too. Which one is better, Aquanaut or Nautilus? Van Lux says, I like the Aquanaut better than the Nautilus. Patek Chris says, I like the Nautilus better than the Aquanaut. Hey, I love my people. I do prefer the Aquanaut as well if I'm forced to choose between those two. But why go for the second best when you can go for the original, which is the Royal Oak, of course, just to instigate people a little more.
Definitely not the Cubist, right?
Don't get me started. Don't get me started. So this is a late 60s Rolex Cosmograph Daytona, reference 6241. The so-called John Player Special, which is a stunning combination of black and gold with the exotic dial. Here, again, reflecting that color combination, black and gold or black and champagne, you might also say. And the estimated value of this piece at lot 36 is somewhere between $600,000 to $900,000. By the way, again, going back to that idea where you have some pieces as part of this auction that are a little more conservatively priced or estimated, once again, is with the purpose of bringing as many people and as many different kinds of people into that room. Because again, we cover these things mostly online, even when we are in that room, and possibly live stream. It's hard to think about the kind of effort auctioneers put in well in advance of the auction to literally curate also the number of people who are going to end up in that room. So there will be the right kind of one-upmanship, antagonism and competition between them for every single piece. So you need the person who thinks that they can snag a piece of this treasure at $10,000-$15,000. You also need the people who are going to one-up each other at the level of $1-2 million. You need people who are coming to get one of these jerseys, and you need people who might just want a rare Patek and could care less about Tom Brady. You need to have everyone in the room so you have the right energy for a good auction.
Sure, absolutely. And you think too, like, and there'll probably be like a few pieces, that might not have that bump due to association, and some may just kind of go for their market value, or even a little less, from a market / estimate value. It's all subject to the room. And I was actually, it kind of dawned on me. Remember the old Archie saying, and actually from the kind actions of one of our good friends, Aussie expat, was bringing Krispy Kreme donuts to your dealer. I wonder if anyone's ever thought to bring Krispy Kreme to the auctioneer to maybe get like the appropriate cadence within the bidding, right?
Well, I think the auctioneers, for better or worse, the auctioneers operate with a different. Okay, I'm not gonna look. I mean, these would be, if I start talking about this, they might end up being serious allegations, and I might actually put myself into real trouble rather than just being persona non grata by certain employees of Philips. So let's stop right here. I am going to also show a personal favorite at lot 7. I've always been a fan of the Royal Oak chronograph. I know I'm going against my own best intentions. You guys know that I repeat, absolutely despise a date window, but there are exceptions. I know you must have dated, or maybe you're still married to that one woman for whom you always made an exception, or man, for that matter. You guys don't. We're open-minded here.
Love is love.
And Royal Oak is that for me, right? I hate the date window on any other watch. With the Royal Oak, I might just tolerate it in the right combination. I also love the history of the Royal Oak chronograph specifically, which was introduced with Garry Kasparov, who is someone I really admire, a chess grandmaster, for those who don't know, also known to the general public for his fateful matchup with a computer, Deep Blue, which he first won and then lost. But I really liked when they reintroduced their chronograph with what is now a quote-unquote in-house caliber, caliber 4401, with the added flyback function. And this khaki green, obviously they photographed it in a way to show that it's green, is such a subtle shade of green,
Sure.
and fits their entire brand image so beautifully, because they use that green, you might say, anywhere from pine green to a very deep, profound shade of it, because Le Brassus is their hometown is a very verdant, obviously, and there are a lot of forests there. So I know people will always associate greens with Rolex, but AP didn't need that justification. But I'm glad they introduced it to this chronograph. Apparently, Tom Brady had a 50th anniversary example of it.
Yeah, with the
which has
rotor. Yeah.
custom rotor.
And yeah, I mean, just look at the AP box, right? Their green boxes.
Yeah, of course. They use it, in the warranty cards, in the presentation boxes. So most certainly. And this is a stainless steel version, even though they caught such a warm shot of it here, I guess to bring out also the green of that dial. It is a 2240 ST, the 50th anniversary edition with the khaki green dial, owned and worn by Tom Brady, lot 7 from 2022, which was indeed the 50th anniversary of the design, with an estimated value between 30,000 to 60,000 US dollars. Are there any other items or watches that you would like to discuss?
Maybe the RM.
Yeah,
The
which
baby Nadal.
there
Yeah.
are three. There's a baby Nadal.
Yeah.
That
That's
one.
right. Yeah. The baby Nadal was kind of the one that just the striking the colors actually the colors, the blue and red.
Yeah.
Really catches the eye, and it's really I was actually like researching this watch like on how you can more or less like disengage the actual router from moving. It almost like splits or something like that keeps it from winding itself while you actually engage in like athletic sport.
That's right. So obviously, a lot of, I mean, just like Rolex existed before Federer, Richard Mille was moderately successful before its association with um, athletes like Rafael Nadal, right? So I don't want to overplay necessarily, but I think the fact that someone like Nadal wore Richard Mille watches to the court when he was competing at the highest level of his sport, I think what was incredibly important in, at the very least, enhancing the mystique of the brand. And obviously, they have over the years, they have always introduced models and complications that affirmed or emphasized that aspect of Richard Mille, on the one hand being a brand associated with supercars, right? With all these skeletonized dials with torque indicators and whatever else that make it seem like or feel like, pardon me, a supercar on the wrist. But also there are instances like this one where the watch has a so-called butterfly rotor, which basically protects the barrel of the movement from the wear and tear that would be caused by highly intense movements in sports, right? Where you would wind the watch basically too much from your golf swing, let's say, or from from your double-handed backhand, whatever you want to talk about. So the rotor is basically made of two titanium pieces that can be adjusted into two different positions, with the pusher at 7 o'clock, the one right here. And in the first position, basically, the pieces form a half circle, just like the traditional oscillating weight, right, where it spins and winds the barrel.
Sure.
In the second, where it opens, basically like a butterfly, where the two pieces align directly opposite each other, like you can see here.
Mm-hmm.
And that basically holds the winding when you are engaged in this sort of intensive athletic or simply physical activity. So you are basically getting the best of both worlds, right? You get your self-winding watch when you are engaged during your everyday activities, but when you are really going to do something intense, you can make sure that the barrel is not overwound and therefore possibly damaged by extensive wear and tear by turning off the rotor, by disengaging the rotor in this particular way.
Right. That's really cool.
And obviously, this RM3503 is made even better for this collection, the GOAT collection, because it has a blue quartz TPT case with a white quartz TPT case band, which gives us altogether with the details on the crown, the colors of the New England Patriots.
That's right.
And here it's posed right over a jersey as well. Yeah. It's a great choice. Base.
I think it's cool. Yeah.
I'm glad you you directed me towards this, because God knows I'm already branded as a hater for Richard Mille for whatever reason. You know, I don't actually have such strong feelings. Humble Pine, 1999.
Let's
Thank
go.
you. Thank you so much. I appreciate this contribution. Wow. I heart Maldives has a good observation here. Is Nadal and or Baba to RM, the Jordan to Nike? What would you say, Basil, about that?
That's actually a really good question. When you have kind of such a face, right? And you can really put that face out there.
Yeah.
I think it's really hard, because I think in tennis you have more of a conversation of who's the greatest. In basketball, I think the default, everybody really does kind of fixate on Jordan. That would maybe be the thing that really makes it tricky. However, but due to like the actual innovativeness of the product, I'd almost say weirdly enough, and it is kind of like a roundabout like idea in mind, is like Sampras to Nike, Nadal to RM, because Sampras had a lot of really cool Nike products.
Yeah.
Some to this day that will get reissued, and he was just really anything cool and hot in tennis in like that late 80s, early 90s was kind of him.
I mean, I don't want to get into a whole debate about Nike's history necessarily.
Sure.
Because I feel the reason I felt this is a great analogy, good night, Humble Pine, thank you so much again, is because I have the feeling, again, on another occasion, because I don't want this to be a 2-hour stream, but you can maybe teach me something about Nike's history that I don't know. But I really think that it's not like they wouldn't exist, don't take me wrong. But
Yeah.
I think maybe the whole endorsement and the branching off of the Jordan brand is mythologized. You know, we all watched The Last Dance. It hasn't been that long, so maybe my judgment is kind of clouded by that. But I feel like, you know, Nike would have had a completely different trajectory if it weren't their association with Jordan. Of course, a lot of people will come from different sides. You know, you gave the great example of Sampras. Football/soccer fan would say, hey, you know, they were associated with Brazil and Joga Bonito, you know, like it's Nike would have been Nike no matter what. But,
Right.
you know, again, I think Richard Mille would have still put itself on the map. I think it would still be a recognizable brand. But would it be the kind of brand that it is today if it weren't for their association to these kinds of um, exemplary athletes like Rafael Nadal, right, like Baba Watson? I highly doubt it.
Yeah.
And it's less about necessarily, you know, what we see these people in their own sport, right? Someone, you know, someone's grandfather might say Jack Nicklaus is the GOAT, or you know, Arnold Palmer is the GOAT,
Yeah.
whatever. But the fact remains that Baba Watson was at the highest level of the sport, right? I might say Federer is the GOAT. People would rightly say, from a, you know, numbers perspective, that Djokovic is actually the best. But no one can deny the fact that Nadal rivaled both of them at his best and was considered in the same sentence as them. So I think that that's a nice line of thinking to follow, that Maldives.
Yeah, and I think like certain sports too. As far as marketing goes, you could you're looking at their hands, and you can see their hands. Like with a driver, you know, they do a little bit like in the cockpit, you know, but they're kind of bundled up. You know, you don't really see like kind of what's being worn and it just
No,
being
no, they are
used in
not
those
allowed,
ways.
actually. I mean, in Formula One, at least, they're not allowed
Okay,
to wear watches anymore. They
I'm
just
probably used to my my NASCAR stuff. My brother is back.
in that, you're right, but in
Yeah.
Formula One they just have the likeness of the endorsement brands on the
Mm-hmm.
gloves. But I mean, don't worry about it. They roll in, like, you know, with all these hype outfits, and
Mm.
you know, they have the grand arrivals now
Sure, like
every
that red
time
carpet. Yeah.
a Grand Prix rolls around. So no doubt, like, the watch endorsements certainly still matter. But again, you know, there's a certain mystique associated with the fact when that watch is worn in the actual activity,
Yep.
right? You know, by
Yeah.
the golfer, by the tennis player, by the NASCAR driver. Um, you know, like, again, you're not allowed to wear jewelry on the football field, as far as I
I,
know. I mean,
yeah,
not a
you'll be
wristwatch.
fine. You'll be fine. Actually, funny enough, actually, do you, I don't know if you recall this scenario, but a guy by the name of Odell Beckham Jr.,
Right.
wide receiver, yeah, literally, I think there was two what we would believe to be RMs. I believe this there was some question on the second piece. The first
Mhm.
piece I think he wore was, I think, to what was said that was probably legit. The second one maybe not, but were worn in a game, and I think that was obviously risky. I think one weird thing would probably take that sucker out, like, you know, but he got away with it, and you know, for better or for worse, I mean, it definitely got people talking about the brand.
Interesting. I will most certainly check that out. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm
it's wild.
familiar with the name
Mm-hmm.
by some distance, I have to say. If you told me, you
He's
know, if you asked me what team he played with,
yeah,
I would have no idea. But we will certainly look into that. Any last last wishes before we
Um,
kill off the stream?
yeah, no, I appreciate, putting the show together. It's fun. I'm a big Boston sports fan, and Tom Brady is definitely somebody like I grew up watching, and kind of from like a guy that, oh yeah, that the kid from Michigan, that's our backup, and this Drew Bledsoe guy is our starter, to kind of like taking that position and being like, I think we might make the playoffs. Oh my gosh, we're going to the Super Bowl. I hope they make it competitive. To him with his hands on his head because he just won the Super Bowl, and to keep going. I to be fair, I kind of, he's a good system guy. Doesn't make a lot of mistakes, but he kind of took that momentum and just really carried it.
Amazing.
And he's like a cool guy. He's somebody that his parents bought him an Omega when he was in high school. Wallpaper of, an IWC, and ultimately get sponsored by them down the road. Started from the bottom, got a Movado deal. I think it was something the 800, but made run of those, and built up really cool stuff with his charity. Um, Best Buddies, they did some Hublot collabs that were kind of interesting, limited
Yeah.
pieces. And I think there's probably been a lot of pieces that have either been friends and family pickups that kind of changed hands and stayed in house. But I think, I think it's just kind of like a lot of us, decide to purge and take things to another level. I don't think he's necessarily leaving the hobby. I think he's definitely holding on. He's not selling
Yeah,
his whole
look, I mean,
collection. Yeah.
I don't judge. I don't
Yeah.
judge. Honestly,
Yeah.
it's there are situations where I feel a certain way,
And that's fair.
and that I also publicly criticized, um, and I think it's still a sticky point when you have this sort of bespoke creature that you order, and it's not that old, as a watch, like that
It's
you order
not.
through special connections and
Mm,
through a lot of grace offered to you by that brand, and then you turn around
I agree.
and basically flip it. uh, that's problematic, but that wasn't the point of this stream. I think
Yeah, of course.
I think maybe he has better taste now.
Yeah.
That's why I will allow him that, that he got rid of specifically that flying tourbillon, which we will have on the screen momentarily before we log off. But I think I forgot that Lot 8, the baby Nadal carrying the colors of New England Patriots, has an estimated value of 300,000 to 500,000 US dollars. So the ceiling of $500,000 at Lot 8. And the only reason I give him a pass on that is because it is a watch that was made in bad taste to begin with. So maybe just like what happened to that Banksy painting that was shredded at the point of purchase, maybe the lucky buyer will be graceful enough for the rest of the horological world to destroy this with a hammer the minute the purchase is finalized. No, I'm just kidding. Just change
It's
the
all good. No,
just
you're
change the
fine.
dial. Just change the dial and the rotor, because you know better. Whoever you are, future buyer of Lot 41. Um, but joking aside, it was great to be with you as always, Basil, to
Thanks for
have
having
you on
me.
this channel
Appreciate it.
as a guest, and as a fellow sports fan, educating me on a sport that I barely understand. I will repeat: the only sport I watch that features men in tights will remain rowing for a little while. But maybe I'll watch the Super Bowl.
That's
Maybe if
fair.
someone invites me to a nice party with good food, with vegan food.
There you go. That always works.
All right, guys, if you haven't hit the like button yet, please do so. And it would be really nice if you also gave a follow, or rather subscribed to Basil's YouTube channel at Bezels_bezels. I dropped the link in the chat. I really appreciate you guys. Thank you for your presence and participation, your support. Humble Pine with your super chat, and Captain,
Nice.
member for 15 months. Nadal is the king of clay, and a huge Real Madrid fan, by the way, I should add. With 14 French Opens, the feat will likely never be equaled. And that is a great point, Captain, our resident tennis expert. And Van Lux says subbed. You haven't.
Awesome.
You're always in my chat, buddy.
Maybe be sub to me.
Oh, I hope
Possibly,
so.
yeah. I think you've heard the sub many moons ago.
Oh, just kidding, Van. I mean, Van Lux, has an interesting sense of humor. So I was thinking whether I would get him like this.
That's fair.
But
they all come around eventually, right?
That's right. Thank you, everybody. Please don't forget to drop a comment after the live stream ends. That helps boost things just a little bit, if anything. And stay safe, stay healthy, wear and enjoy your watches. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you, guys.